The Prism of Lyra, an exploration of human galactic heritage, by Lisa Royal and Keith Priest. Introduction. It was not the mixture, O men, of blood and breath, that made the beginning and substance of your souls, though your earthborn and mortal body is framed of these things, but your soul has come hither from another place. Empedocles. From the earliest days in Earth-recorded history, there has been a bittersweet emotion that wells up within us as we gaze into the expanse of the night sky. Some of us long for the day when the human race can travel beyond the stars. Is it really just a hope for the future rather than a remembrance of our past? The human consciousness has intricacies that still remain unexplored. What stirs us to push evolution to its limits? What drives us to create dissension between the races on our planet? Perhaps it is possible that we are playing out a cosmic drama and have only temporarily forgotten the script. We know that what one country or race does upon the earth affects another. This idea may also spread outward into the universe. Perhaps what we do here affects countless other civilizations on other planets. Could we really be that linked together? The information presented in this book is a compilation of years of insight, deductive reasoning, and channeling. Meticulous cross-referencing of various channels have been conducted, primarily using the work of co-author Lisa Royal, as well as research into a number of respected anthropological and metaphysical works. The reader may consider these ideas to be literal or symbolic, for the story is the same. There is no claim that this is the ultimate truth of our galactic family's emergence into this reality. If it works for you, use the insights given here as a catalyst for your own growth. If not, perhaps it can lead you one step closer to your own personal truth. One of the most important ideas to accelerate the human potential is the allowance of all truth to be a manifestation of the one truth, whatever it may be. Through this allowance emerges unification. If nothing else, let this book be fun to read, interesting, and stimulating to your imagination. Your belief is certainly not required, but your willingness to be an explorer is. This is an introductory book. An extensive glossary has been created at the end of the material for any unfamiliar terms that have been used. Each chapter represents a different facet of an intricate tapestry of how the tapestry affects Earth. Through many discussions, the information has been honed down into the framework that will introduce the reader to a cast of characters. The cast is not complete. There are countless other members and dramas being played out throughout our universe. These characters have emerged as ones who seem to matter most to the human drama here on Earth. There are certain assumptions carried throughout the material that are a foundation for the rest of the information. One of these is the idea of reincarnation and the infinite nature of consciousness. It is not necessary to embrace this concept in order to grasp the material, but it will allow the reader a more expanded view of the bigger picture. Another assumption presented is the idea that each being possesses a higher awareness. It is purported that regardless of the level of existence a being has chosen for a given lifetime, it retains an awareness, conscious or subconscious, of its connection to the whole and its divine identity. This concept connects us with the idea that it is we and we alone who control our destiny. Therefore, evolution is in our own hands. Throughout the entire book, the assumption will also be carried out that the whole, or the integrated mass consciousness of our galactic family has always existed. For the purpose of the information presented, there will need to be some set parameters. These parameters were allegorically referred to the beginning of the story as being the dimensional infusion, and the end as the integration. In many cases, labels have been used to denote places or people, such as Sirius or Syrians. In general, these labels are fluid, more denoting a realm or vibrational awareness than a fixed idea. In a case such as Lyra, for example, the possibility is respected that the very stars spoken of have become black holes and white holes many times over. Therefore, these can be spoken of as ideas rather than concrete points in time and space. These ideas carry weight. This is quite apparent in our legends that give importance to other star systems. The Dogons, tribe legends, the Sumerian texts, and the ancient Egyptian writings all claim contact with beings from other star systems. These legends must come from somewhere. Though their language and contemporary style of expression differ slightly, the consistency of their content is beyond argument. Information about the past of the human race can enrich our lives here on Earth. If we are to truly transform, it will be through the infusing of awareness onto our world, not using the awareness to escape from our responsibility as citizens of Earth and the galactic family. Part 1. I am a child of earth and starry heaven, but my race is of heaven alone. This ye know yourselves. Translated from the Patilia plate, Orphic Initiates, 200 to 400 BC. 1. Dimensional infusion. With its celestial keys, its chords of air, its frets of fire, the Samian's great Aeolian Lyra, raising through all the sevenfold bars from earth onto the fixed stars. Longfellow on Lyra from Occultation of Orion. All consciousness and energy was once fused into an integrated whole. The whole was aware of aspects of itself, but in a different way from individualized consciousness. In Earth's present development, the self is recognized first, then society, and finally the whole, all that is, or God. Separation is still created. This separation from the source is an illusion. This illusion is a tool that provides the whole with all the necessary lessons and challenges it needs to experience in order to reintegrate back into the source. Before this fragmentation from the source, the whole existed in another octave of dimensional reality. From this realm of unification, portions of all that is wondered what it would be like to fragment and temporarily forget integrated existence. The force of this thought on such a mass level began to create a fragmentation. The illusion created from this fragmentation would be challenging forgetfulness, in which consciousness would need to create, from its own divine nature, the remembrance to once again unite. What has been termed creation is indeed this fragmentation, or more descriptively, the dimensional infusion. The whole's initial curiosity about a fragmented existence actually created the reality itself. It required a shift in perspective, focus, or frequency. As part of the whole, aspects of the Galactic family were partially responsible for laying out the blueprint that was to guide their development. Therefore, the statement, "We are God," actually has viable meaning. The blueprint that was laid out contained many different ideas. It first held the notion that polarity and fragmentation would be the norm. The encoding in the blueprint provided the option of free will on the part of each fragment of soul. The challenge was in remembering that each consciousness possessed it. The more free will is used, the more divine memory is invoked. When faced with a polarized reality, free will becomes a liberator. When a soul forgets it possesses free will, the lessons become much more challenging, yet quite rewarding. Another idea present in this chosen blueprint was that fragments of the whole would be entirely responsible for their actions during this state of amnesia. Whether or not it was remembered, every action taken would generate a response from the universe. Some have called this karma. However, it is much more than an eye for an eye. Instead of punishment for negative behavior, there is always the option of expanding one's awareness. Therefore, in a sense, wisdom erases karma. Though this may sound like the rules for some kind of cruel cosmic game, the outcome has already been decided. With this in mind, it is not necessarily the destination that counts, but the journey along the way. It is quite literally how the game is played. Another blueprint agreed to was an etherically generated code built into the fabric of the universal tapestry. This code would allow bipedal, carbon-based humanoid forms to be the normal, naturally developing vehicle for the incarnation of human-type consciousness on planetary structures. This code exists on meta-atomic levels that science is just beginning to learn to measure. The symbology of polarity plays out in the human body form. The Earth human is symmetrical with 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, ears, etc. The body is joined into a whole by a torso and a head. It was also decided that during the evolutionary development of humanoid forms within the Earth galactic family, that the male and female polarities would manifest in separate but complementary body types. This serves as a reminder that in order to create, polarities must also be joined or integrated. The notion is widely held that an individual has a tendency to feel most at one when he or she is joined with another in love. What was the actual process of the dimensional infusion? There exists within the time-space fabric of the constellation Lyra what can be called a white hole. Compare this white hole to a prism. In passing a beam of light through a prism, one gets a spectrum of light fragmented into 7 visible color frequencies. When a portion of the whole passed through the prism of Lyra, the white hole, consciousness was fragmented into 7 vibratory frequencies that represent the mass consciousness of Earth's galactic family. Each fragment became conscious of all these different frequencies or densities. Frequencies were previously experienced as being integrated into the whole like white light. When this portion of the whole passed through the prism, it manifested as 7 aware frequencies. Consciousness also fragmented, and the fragments moved away from each other as the Big Bang theory symbolically suggests. The illusion thus arose that each fragment was very, very alone. The whole understood that the purpose of this experience was to learn to reintegrate from a point of separation. But how? As individual souls or in groups, the fragments sought out the universe that was just created. The dimensional infusion not only created a consciousness fragmentation, but it also created the stars, planets, gases, and molecules that made up physical reality. However, physical reality represents only a few of the energy frequencies that emerge from the fragmentation. As science has discovered, matter is densified, energy vibrating at a specific rate. Every aspect of the universe is made up of energy. In Earth technology, it has not yet been discovered how to measure certain portion of reality. If technology possessed this ability, an infinite number of gateways into time, space, and dimensions would be seen. For the time being, the 7 frequency levels that Earth Galactic family fragmented into by passing through the prism of Lyra will be explored below. From this point forward, the term density will be used in reference to these frequency levels. First density. Awareness as a point, physical matter. This frequency level is the most basic. It provides the matter and energy for the creation of atoms and molecules. The basic life forms of mineral and water, for example, are all operating from first density frequency. Humans possess this frequency within themselves as well. It makes up the basic genetic code. Second density. Awareness as a line. Biological matter, development of group or species identity. The consciousness expressed by second density vibration does not possess self-awareness or ego. Most species within the plant and animal kingdoms exist here. However, their placement in density depends upon many additional factors, including the presence or absence of ego. Third density. Volumetric awareness. Ego. Loss of group identity. Development of individual identity, ability to remember past and cognize the future while retaining present awareness. This is the density where the human beings emerge. It is a vibration that creates the illusion of separation and thus a challenge toward awakening. Presently, humanity is going through a transition period into fourth density reality, which can account for the many rapid changes the human race is undergoing. This is the frequency that expresses the most separation from the whole. It is from here that many lessons about integration are learned. This is the most intense of all levels in its cultivation of growth within itself. Cetaceans, dolphins, and whales presently exist simultaneously in third and fourth densities and are transitioning out of third along with humanity. The consciousness of primates exists in third density as well. The evolution of primates is becoming increasingly apparent as one begins to observe them displaying several characteristics that were once thought of as indigenous only to human, such as language acquisition and pathological behavior. Fourth density. Containment of volumetric awareness, superconsciousness, reintegration of group identity without loss of ego identity. As vibration increases, perception of past, present, and future become more fluid, along with the ability to interface with the multidimensional and multi-density realities. Negatively oriented consciousness become more difficult to maintain. Presently on Earth, fourth density reality is overlapping third. In humanity's case, this can account for the increased desire for unity, peace, and unconditional love, as opposed to the illusion of separation that characterizes third density. The vibratory rate of one's reality is stepped up, and therefore one may be faced with personal issues in a much more rapid and intense way. It is easy to see how this is coming into play with the thousands of individuals upon Earth who are in therapy, in substance abuse programs, and engaging in humanistic efforts to better your planet. This is the frequency of responsibility. This is the frequency when one begins to remember the encoding of free will. This is the last frequency where physical bodies are the vehicles for the expression of consciousness. Hence, many civilizations choose to spend long periods of time within this density. The fifth density, the experiential awareness of I as a group identity, not bound by linear time. In this density, sentient consciousness begins to awake to its heritage. This is the density of wisdom. As one awakens the wisdom within, they very often want to share it with those who are still focused in the lower densities. Many from this realm choose to become guides for others. A fifth density being merges with its family of consciousness, oversoul or higher self if you will, and begins to remember. This is the first density in which a non-physical orientation is experienced. Note, there is no clear-cut distinction when transitioning from fifth to sixth and sixth to seventh densities, because these densities are not physically oriented. There is much blending in these transitions. Sixth density, awareness as the dimension itself. This has often been called the Christ consciousness, in that it displays a frequency level equal to that of Christ or Buddha. From this frequency, a total remembrance occurs, and one begins taking responsibility for the whole rather than the self. The process of progressing the self and progressing the whole become one and the same. Seventh density, awareness as the multidimensional experiences, group matrix identity, the social memory complex. This is the frequency of total oneness or integration. Those who vibrate to this frequency are merged in identity and become a mass conscious whole. They magnetize those in other frequencies and provide the current for the natural flow toward integration. Once the seventh density beings reach critical mass, they will progress through the prism of Lyra. From our point of view, it will then be a black hole exit point and reach the next octave where another adventure awaits. It is important to note that as the portions of the whole fragmented through the prism of Lyra, each consciousness retained awareness on all density levels. However, part of the forgetfulness remained. For most highly focused density levels, such as third and a portion of the fourth, an unawareness may occur concerning the coexistence of other levels. As integration occurs, one becomes aware of these other aspects. The microcosm always reflects the macrocosm. This is visible in the coincidence of how atomic structure mirrors the structure of a solar system. It is the same with the fragmentation of portions of the whole into individual beings or soul groups. When one incarnates into a physical body, it can be likened to a mini passage through the prism of Lyra. The process of soul fragmentation as one incarnates physically can be likened somewhat to Freud's id, ego, and superego theories. As a fetus, the soul demonstrates a first-density consciousness. At that point, one is aware of itself as intricately connected to the environment. Physically, one is a mass of DNA codes with the potential to become a conscious human being. Since Freud did not take this hypothesis into prenatal development, there is no correlation. If he were to have created a label to describe the fetus relationship to its environment, then it would have been a first-density description. When the child is between birth and 2 years old, he or she begins to demonstrate second-density consciousness. A separation begins to be perceived between itself and the environment, and its desire becomes externalized. This is still somewhat of an egocentric point of view, which correlates this development level with the id. What distinguishes a child's second-density orientation from third-density is a lack of distinctability to differentiate between itself and the environment. From approximately the second year of life onward, third-density consciousness becomes the primary framework demonstrated. This is the development of the ego and the awareness of the child as a separate individual. These are crucial formative years. One can see that if development is disrupted, such as through abuse, the personality can fragment and perhaps create dysfunction later in life. Many individuals retain this third-density consciousness orientation of ego throughout their entire lives. The development of the superego, or higher awareness, is a typical fourth-density trait. Humans have the option to develop this aspect of themselves. This is a reintegration of the fragmentation of personality that occurs through the birth process, as well as integration on a spiritual level. As the human race begins to move more solidly into fourth-density consciousness, it is suspected that his personality fragmentation process will become less apparent, and perhaps children will begin displaying fourth density characteristics earlier in their development and retain them throughout their lives. In childhood, one must learn how to adapt and integrate into a workable framework. If one cannot do this, such as in the instance of child abuse, psychological disorders will very often be displayed when adulthood is reached. Pathologies such as multiple personality disorder can occur because the natural third density personality integration process did not occur during childhood. Some extraterrestrial civilizations have learned to detect and transmute the seeds of pathological disorders during childhood, and therefore have no incident of adult pathologies. If it is understood that no matter how far an individual fragments, either on a soul level or in the personality, and that the way back home is always through integration, he or she will never lose sight of the goal. In this case, we can go home again. End of chapter.